Hi, mystery writers. Wow. So I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, all of you who live in the United States. And I was able to join my family, two members I hadn't seen since August when before school started. So very fun and wonderful. All right. Today I wanted to talk about subplots in a mystery and what they do and how you can use them. Um, Subplots add depth to your mystery story by giving readers a deeper vision of the story, especially the protagonist. They add dimension to the main plot. They can test the protagonist's motivation and ability to solve the puzzle because they get in the way. They create different points of view on the central murder victim and the suspects. Just a few of the ways you can use subplots to add dimension to the story. In a mystery, the subplots enhance the detective and often lead to his or her down. Uh, often lead to lead. I can't talk. I can't get a phrase together. I'm sorry. Lead her down false trails that prevent her from finding the murder. And it's a great way to use subplots. They can often be, as it were, a red herring. So you can think about the ways that you can add subplots. So I wanted to share with you two types of subplots so you can think about how those will work in your story. I know right now in my story I have one subplot, which is an opposition subplot, and I'm thinking about adding another one. Anyway, here let's talk about those two main variations. Um, there are affinity subplots, and these are stories within the story that involve the detective in a positive relationship, as well as the traditional love interest. Other positive subplots include friendship, mentoring young people, um, sometimes a love interest between two young adults in the story, and even relationships with animals. Um, and um, and of course, affinity subplots often involve sidekick if your detective has a sidekick. And then the other type, these are two big broad categories, okay? So the other type of subplot is the opposition subplot. On These are just what it says. These plot arcs involve opposition to the detective. It can be a jealous cohort, a corrupt boss, political conflict within the community, riots, acts of God, and other outside influences that distract and thwart your detective from solving the mystery, because the whole point of the story is to solve the mystery. We have to keep that in mind as we think about subplots, because somehow they need to either build for the detective or oppose the detectives. Um, so mystery readers enjoy the puzzle. So the first criterion is to keep your subplots minor additions to the overall story. So focus on your story, solving that mystery. Novice writers should have only two subplots and focus on the craft of weaving them into that main storyline. So you want to outline the subplot from beginning to end, the same way that you do your story. And your subplot is a mini story, so give it a beginning, middle, and end with plot points or beats, depending on what structure you use. Your subplot is similar, and it just has fewer steps to resolution than your main story. Then, after you've kind of outlined your subplot, look at your main story outline and position the episodes of your subplot within that main story outline. So your subplot hits at various points within the story. So when I say, I just want to make this clear. Excuse me, I have the sniffles. Um, when when I say the subplot is a story with a beginning, middle, and end, it isn't one big hunk right in the middle of your story somewhere. You want to add the various parts of that subplot along with building your main story. The main actions of subplots occur in Act 2 if you're using the 3-act structure. So they're going to begin, and some of them are going to end within the middle section of your story. I don't know how to say this, but major subplots can find a resolution closer to the story resolution. But I just want to remind you that you want all of your subplots to conclude before your detective solves the mystery, before the big reveal. And I think I've mentioned this before, that mystery readers are there to get a mystery and to get that puzzle solved. And once that puzzle is solved, in a reader's mind, the story is over. All right, so make sure that you conclude your subplots before you have that big reveal in your story. The main action of the subplot is in that middle section of your story, and it goes from beginning to end within that middle section. If you're using the 3-plot structure, that is Act 2. If you're using the 4-act structure, that is within Acts 2 and 3. And remember that the main story takes precedence. If you have 2 subplots, you want to bring them to conclusion in different places within the main story. Okay, so subplots can take beginning writers down long trails that lead away from the main story, so it's best to handle them with kid gloves and a light and gentle touch. If you get too far deep into it, you're going to take your readers away from the main mystery. Okay, Robert McKee, who's famous for his book Story, I want to read you a quote because I think this is a great way of looking at subplots. If a subplot doesn't thematically contradict or resonate the controlling idea of the main plot, if it doesn't set up the introduction of the main plot's inciting incident or complicate the action of the main plot, if it merely runs alongside, it will split the story down the middle and destroy the effect. So, and that's what I want to make sure you understand, is the subplot always relates to that main story. So before you plan your subplot, consider how it enhances the main story. Your detective is out to find and confront a murderer, and you don't want to go too far afield in the subplot. So let's talk about a subplot safety valve for new writers. Learning to create and use subplots is part of the craft of writing. And for your first mystery novel, choose one subplot that develops your main plot and drive that main plot by adding breadth to the characters and intrigue to the storyline. Go deeper into your detective by adding conflict that exposes their flaws or their strengths, and your subplot can give your story that depth, which I talked about at the beginning. It gives readers insight into detectives' motivations. Choose one aspect and develop your subplot. Then add your subplot scenes into the main story sequence. I think it helps if you really have a good idea of the main story sequence so you can plot out where you're going to add the subplot elements. You'll find the pre-planning you do will help you write a story with a subplot that is fluid and keeps the reader turning pages. I hope that helps. Subplots, subplots can start to have a big life of their own and try to take over the story. So you want to make sure that, I think, if you use that guideline of keeping the subplot from beginning to end in the middle of your story, it won't take away from your main plot. Okay, I hope that helps. I'd love to hear how your stories are going. So post your progress in the group, and I'll see you next week.